Okay, so what's Mickey Mouse's favorite book?
What, Hannah?
Of Mice and Men.
Yep, that's me.
Ooh, I need to get my energy level up. But hello, beautiful bookish people. My name is Hannah, and today we are recommending books based on Disney World rides. And I got this idea because I was talking about a really bad Maggie Stiefvater book, and I correlated it to a Disney World ride. And so it got me thinking, can I do that with other books? And hence, this video has arrived. So, I don't have much else to say about that, but I think we can just jump on into it. But the first ride that I want to talk about is the Carousel of Progress. Now, this is one of the only rides that Walt Disney still has like his design in. Like, he invented it for some world fair, I forget which one. But it kind of takes you on this little journey through families, through the generations, to see like what family values were, how those change, and how those affect the future. And there's kind of all a storyline. There's a narrator, that's the dad, and then there's a nice little theme song to wrap it up.
So there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, shining at the end of every day.
But it leaves you hopeful for the future. The book I want to recommend for the Carousel of Progress might seem like a strange pick, and that is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender. Now, this book is about 3 generations of women and how, and each of the journeys of each of the people in this story is affecting each other. So you get this very long generational story and see how it's affecting others. Mixed with like very lyrical writing. All of the trigger warnings you could ever think of. It's not happy-go-lucky. But the way that it talks about the future, I think at the end of the day, is hopeful. And how family connection is really strong and powerful at the end of the day. And I think if you boil down the Carousel of Progress, you can see through the generations that the family bond is really what brings us together. Wow. I feel like I'm at a slam poetry meeting. So yes, moving on. The next ride I want to talk about is Space Mountain, the classic of all classics, I would say. One of them rides. And Space Mountain is very quick. It kind of like leads you to a countdown, and then boom, you're on a space journey. You're just kind of looking around. Wow, this is exciting. I'm going fast. And then there's a photo. You better pose. So, based on its very fast-paced journey, and kind of at the end of the day, you kind of want to go on it time and time again because it's fast, it's fun, and it's family-friendly. So what else is fast and fun and family-friendly? Why, it's Want by Cindy Pon. Now, I literally just read this book, and it's essentially a sci-fi thriller mixed with a little bit of romance, which might sound like a lot, but it kind of reminds me of that TikTok trend. It goes like 5, 4, 3, 2, wada bada bing, bada bada boom, bada bada boom. That's what it reminds me of, because there's so many elements in this book that I like. I don't know what the trope is called, but I'm gonna call it the Cody Banks trope. You have a spy that is tasked with the task of getting close with a girl and ends up falling for the girl or her. I don't know what to call that trope, but I love it. And just like Space Mountain, it starts off with a bang. It starts out with a kidnapping. What? So, like Space Mountain, it captures you from the beginning and it just takes you on a fun space journey. Okay, next ride we have some beef with. Next ride is the Teacups. And I hate the Teacups, like with a burning passion. I don't know who goes on the Teacups and thinks like, oh, I like the sensation of feeling dizzy. Like, who are you? I just want to know. I just want to talk. You're just going around in circles and it seems pointless. That's very harsh, but I guess I just don't like the feeling of being dizzy, and I just can't relate to like wanting that sensation. So what is kind of a book that to me was kind of pointless and left me a little dizzy? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that is We All Looked Up by Tommy Wallich. Now, this is a book about kind of the world coming to an end and what that does to society, people, but specifically these 5 high school students. And they're kind of all the typical archetypes, like a jock, the nerd, the slut, and all that stuff. And I think where it fails, it doesn't leave those archetypes. To me, I never got the feeling that someone was more than a jock person. But I feel like I didn't learn anything from a book. Like, that's my purpose of reading. I want a book to teach me a lesson about life or love or what have you. And, like, it can be something dumb. Like, it can be a vocabulary word, and I will be happy. But this left me with the feeling of being empty, just like the teacups. Leave me feeling dizzy and empty inside. We All Looked Up really did nothing for me. It's one of those books that once I put down, I never thought of again. Now, I kind of want to talk about Monsters, Inc. There's a Monsters, Inc. ride, or not ride, experience in Disney World where you kind of go in and it's a very interactive experience. It's a comedy night and you are the audience. They look at the audience and interact with them and try to make jokes with them. And it's usually very successful. Very punny. It exists outside of an original canon and it's just kind of wholesome fun. And that is exactly like Squirrel Girl by Shannon Hale and Dean Hale. Now, Squirrel Girl has so many puns. It's almost over the top, but for me, I loved it. And like the Monsters, Inc. ride, it exists in an already established canon. This is from the Marvel universe, and we actually see some of the Avengers or Marvel characters coming into play in Squirrel Girl. And so, what Shannon Hale is really good at, I don't want to say juvenile, that's not the right word, really good child story that's easy to digest and just fun. That while it might be a little cheesy, it's still really fun. And that's what I really like about Squirrel Girl, is it's optimistic and fun. If you're looking for a good pun or a good time, you know what to do. Okay, next. Thank you. I want to talk about the Rock and Roller Coaster for a second. Rock and Roller Coaster is a ride that's set around Aerosmith, and the roller coaster is you going to this Aerosmith concert. It's very fast. I feel like if you timed it, the roller coaster ride itself would be like a minute and a half. It's so fast. Like, at one point you go through a donut. It's almost like a fever dream. Like, it's one of the best roller coasters. It's not for the faint of heart because you go from like 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds. It's boom, let's go to this Aerosmith concert. So what is really fast, really short, one of the best, and almost a fever dream? Saga, ladies and gentlemen. So Saga follows this couple that come from different species. So it's against the law for them to have a baby, but oops, you know, love happens and they have a baby. And so it's them running away from the government, prejudice, and all that good stuff. Just to find their found family and where they belong. Super fast, super good. And with some of those drawings, you're like, am I in a fever dream? I don't know. Okay, so for the next one, I want to talk about Splash Mountain. It's one of the big 3 mountains. So Splash Mountain is about this rabbit, and he is running away from a fox and a bear. So while you're on this ride, you're on this log, and it's very slow, and everyone knows we're all waiting for the infamous drop in Splash Mountain, where we all get soaking wet, and that's the point of it. So while you're on this ride, you're watching the story and you're like, okay, this is nice, this is cool, but I'm just ready for that drop. And so when I think about that, what is like a book that is extremely slow, is kind of slowly unraveling itself, and kind of the whole point of the book is the ending and that drop. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is The Starless Sea. The Starless Sea is a beautiful book, but you have no idea what's going on until the end. Until you're all wet and you're like, ah, that's what the metaphor was. The Starless Sea is about this guy named Zachary, and he starts reading this book from his library and realizes that he's reading a very specific story from his childhood, and kind of the adventure of that and figuring out, why am I in this story? I never told anybody this story. So it's kind of a metaphor and kind of not, which is very Aaron Morgenstein. But at the end of the day, the drop is worth it. At the end of the day, you know, it's worth it to get wet for the Starless Sea. Doesn't make sense to the end, but it's worth it. Okay, the next one I'm kind of proud of. It's a very easy connection to make, but you know, nevertheless, I'm happy about it. So the next ride I want to talk about is the Haunted Mansion. Now the Haunted Mansion is one of the OGs. It's very slow, but you're just kind of taking in the atmosphere of the story, and it's kind of trying to mind bend and use almost illusions to make it a scary ride, even though it's not that scary. So you're just taking a tour of this really cool haunted mansion. There's a woman in an orb, there's a graveyard, and at the end of the ride, a ghost is supposed to stay with you for the rest of your trip, which is always like a cool notion that, ooh, a ghost is with me, but it's not that scary. You know what other haunted mansion we take a tour of that is also pretty slow? The Shining by Stephen King. So, just like the Haunted Mansion, there are characters. There are characters, but do I remember the characters? No. I remember the woman in the orb. I remember the scary graveyard. I remember the last 50 pages of The Shining. And just like the Haunted Mansion, The Shining is incredibly slow. There are so many down moments that I understand. Like, King is one of those authors that the down moments are important because you get to see kind of how these powers are playing into the character development of each character. It just gets tiresome. And at the end of the day, I'm not here for a wannabe writer. I'm here for the Haunted Mansion that they stay at. So at the forefront is a boring story.
And
but still scary. It's worth it for those scary moments, just like the Haunted Mansion. Wow, we got there. It took a hot second, but we did get there. But anywho, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this kind of random video, but it was really fun for me to like piece all these things together. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Keep reading and all that jazz. You're gonna learn some book recommendations and my opinions on the Disney World canon of rides. That's actually a really good description of Saga, in my opinion. But I'm glad that we come here. But I'm glad it's a very easy assumption. What, I can't talk today. The Carousel is Progress. I don't know what I'm saying. Makes you think that